on.
Hi there, it's really good to be joining you again, whether you're watching this in your classroom or whether you're watching it from home. Delighted that Andy and I can share with you in our collective worship in our assembly together. So if you're at St Peter's Primary School, hello to you. If you're at Gayton Primary School, hello to you. If you're at Heswell Primary School, hello to you. We're continuing our series now, Giants of Faith, and we come today to one of my favourite characters in the Old Testament, a man called Gideon. And his story is really amazing, as God asked him to do something which to begin with just seemed far too big for him to even contemplate. He didn't think he could do it. God described him as a strong warrior, and he thought, oh, that's not me, that's not me. And actually, as the story unfolds, we hear that actually God was right. Gideon was just the person for the job. And actually, when he learned to trust God, he found that he could do what he was asked to do in a way which was really quite surprising. So as we begin today, as we normally do at St. Peter's, we're going to light our collective worship candle. Just reminds us that wherever we are, God is with us, that Jesus shines as the light of the world. Just a symbol for us to ready our hearts and be ready to hear what God would say to us. So as we begin, we're going to join in first song. It's a song we've been using throughout this series, Giants of Faith. So please enjoy singing it together, and we'll see you in a moment.
Jesus is on my side. I don't need to be afraid. I don't need to run and hide. When I open my Bible, it's clear as can be. The God that I read about's with me, and I'm gonna be a giant of faith. Like Moses and Joseph, Daniel, Esther, Rahab and Ruth, no denying the truth. The giants of faith, and like David, Elijah, Noah and the rest of the team, I'm gonna be a giant of faith. I'm gonna be a giant of faith. Every day we always stick together, hand in hand. I know you are always there. And angels are watching me. When I open my Bible, it's clear as can be. The God that I read about's with me. And I'm gonna be a giant of faith. Like Moses and Joseph, Daniel, Esther, Rahab and Ruth, no denying the truth. The giants of faith, and like David, Elijah, Noah and the rest of the team, I'm gonna be a giant of faith. I'm gonna be a giant of faith. By faith I can do anything. By faith I can do anything. By faith I can do anything. Like Moses and Joseph, Daniel, Esther, Rahab and Ruth, no denying the truth. The giants of faith, and like David, Elijah, Noah and the rest of the team, I'm gonna be a giant of faith. I'm gonna be a giant of faith.
Well, what a wonderful song. We absolutely love that song, Giants of Faith. And as Martin said earlier, we are continuing with our Giants of Faith today, looking at a gentleman in the Bible called Gideon. And we know, as Martin said, that Gideon was a giant of faith because he learned to trust God even when things seemed so big or too big to even think about doing. Gideon trusted and proved that he was a giant of faith. Today, I'm going to ask my family here, some of them, half of them, the rest are upstairs. But I'm going to ask Helen, Neo and Levi some challenges, and I want them to put their thumbs up if they feel comfortable doing a challenge, thumbs down if they're not so comfortable doing that challenge, and if they're not bothered, just give a wiggle of their thumbs. And actually, I'd like you guys to do it either in your classroom or at home as well. So when I ask these questions here, these challenges, I want you guys to stick your thumbs up if you're comfortable, down if you're not comfortable, and if you're not bothered, give a wiggle. And then if you're in your classroom, maybe you can ask afterwards why you thought or why you said those answers. And if you're at home, maybe you can have a think about why you give those answers. And I'm going to ask my family why they give theirs when we do it. So are we ready? You ready, guys?
Yes.
Okay, so they're really simple challenges. Or some of you might think they're simple. But the first one is jumping in the deep end of a swimming pool. Do you find that comfortable? Not comfortable? Or you're not bothered? Right, okay, we've got a comfortable and we've got a not comfortable here. Levi's not bothered. That's all. I wonder what you got there at home or in the classroom. Maybe have a think about that now. So, Helen, why are you not comfortable doing that?
Well, because I'm not a very strong swimmer.
No?
So I don't mind gradually go into the deep end, but I wouldn't jump straight in.
Okay. Can I give a little story a minute about Helen? We were in France last year.
Oh.
No, 2 years ago. We went to France on holidays. And and Helen doesn't like going in the deep end of the pool. And she doesn't put her head under the water.
No.
And she's never worn goggles before in her life. So we managed to make her wear goggles for the first time ever. Helen, first time ever. And she put them on, and it took her about an hour to put the goggles on because every time they touched her eyes, she thought her eyeballs were going to be sucked out of her head. And she was screaming, going, "Ah, no, my eyeball's going to be sucked out," and all this. And then we finally got the goggles on. And after another hour, we managed to get her to put her head under the water. So she went in, under like this, and then went and came out coughing and spluttering and coughing water everywhere, and she was in a really bad state. And we're like, what's the matter? And do you know what her answer was? What was your answer, Helen? I'll tell you. Her answer was, You can't breathe underwater. What? She actually went underwater and tried to breathe normally.
I was in a panic about the goggles.
Yeah. Okay, so I hope you've had to think about why you answered your way. We know why Helen's not comfortable jumping in the deep end now. But right, our next one. Oh, going to school for the first time. Or maybe going to secondary school for the first time. Do you feel comfortable? Not bothered? Oh,
Mummy's wiggling.
Mummy's a wiggler. Levi, what are you?
Were you happy going to
Oh,
school?
you're happy going to school. When are you going to school?
In September.
In September. Are you happy? Are you excited? Yeah, so Levi's comfortable about going to school. Neo and Helen are a little bit like that. What were your answers? And have a think about them. And maybe you can ask each other why you thought those. Right, the next one. We do a couple more. Stroking a dog or a cat. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Are you comfortable with stroking a dog or a cat? Yeah, all thumbs up here. I know if my daughter was here and you mentioned the word cat, she'd be like, boom, because she absolutely hates cats. So why do you feel comfortable stroking cats, Neo?
Nothing wrong with them.
Nothing wrong with them. They're cute. They're lovely. Brilliant. Right, how about climbing something really high, like a cliff or rock face? Ooh. Or standing on the top of something super high and looking over the edge. Ooh. Right, Levi's got a thumbs up. Helen's a bit of a wiggler. And Neo's a thumbs down. So why are you comfortable about standing somewhere high? Are you okay? Yeah? Why are you a wiggler?
Because I'm not afraid of heights.
Yeah.
So I would be happy to go up high somewhere. But I think standing on the edge and looking down might make my tummy churn a little bit.
Yeah. And Neo, why are you not happy?
I'm afraid of heights.
Afraid of heights. I'm afraid of heights actually, but do you know what? My family still send me up the giant ladder to the roof of the house every Christmas to stick up our Christmas lights. My knees are knocking. So I'm a bit like that as well, I think. Okay, right, well, we've seen different activities there, different challenges that can make people think different ways. And certain people, they feel comfortable doing things and some feel uncomfortable. But sometimes we have to trust that we can overcome these fears and manage to do these things that sometimes seem impossible or sometimes seem too big to start with. So that's my question for you right now, is to have a think about a time or a thing that you have done where it seemed too big to start with, but you showed courage and you did it anyway. So that question is going to pop up on the screen. I want you to pause the video, have a think, have a chat, talk to those in your classroom and your teachers, and we'll come back after and we'll carry on with this video.
Great. So I hope you've had an interesting conversation in your classroom with each other, with your teachers. When you think of things which just seem too big or a bit overwhelming, I wonder what you were talking about. The thing that came to my mind is at my previous church, it wasn't a particularly big church, but we as a church undertook a building project. We changed the whole inside of the church, taking out all the pews, replacing the organ, and it was really quite expensive and quite challenging for that small congregation, and it just seemed too big for them to undertake. And one of the things that we learned actually was that God can be trusted. It was a vision that He'd given us as a church, and although it seemed too expensive, too much money to raise, too big for us to do, actually when we trusted Him, we found that actually the church actually did it. God delivered that for us. And I say that because actually we're facing a similar kind of thing here in Heswell. When I think of something which just seems too big for us, well, building the Lighthouse Church just seems a way too big a project for us to manage, and it requires too much money to do it. But actually, we believe that God has called us to do that, and big though it is, He's going to resource us and tell us how to do it in His way if we trust Him. But actually, sometimes trusting Him in that way can be really quite challenging. So we're going to hear now about a man who learned that lesson. His name was Gideon. And we're going to hear his story told really in a very funny way. So I hope you enjoy this. This is the story of Gideon, which you can find in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in Judges chapters 6 and 7.
Alright, my name's Gideon and I'm a bit of a coward, if I'm honest. Which is why I was more than a little surprised when an angel showed up and called me a brave and mighty man. Brave and mighty? My knees were knocking. Well, the other surprising thing is that I was hiding at the time. I live in Israel, and the tribe next door, the Midianites, had decided to attack us and destroy our crops and kill our livestock and more or less do whatever it took to move onto our land. So I was hiding from them inside a giant wine barrel.
God is going to use you to defeat the Midianite army.
The angel announced. But how? But when? But why me?
Gather an army and God will show you.
The angel assured me, but I wasn't feeling assured at all. Still, I thought, it's an angel. Trust the angel. So I did my best. Round up, who wants to fight in my army? 32,000 men answered my trumpet call. But God had another surprise in store.
You have too many soldiers,
He said.
I want you to know that I gave you the victory and not your big army. Tell everyone who's scared to go home.
22,000 men left, and then I was only down to 10,000.
Still too many.
God said, and it was enough to keep myself from crying and running away.
Take the men to the river and tell them to have a drink.
Huh?
Send home every man who kneels down to lap the water up like a dog. Only keep the men who first scoop the water up into their hands.
Okay? I did what God said, and by the time that little test was done, I only had 300 men left. Oh!
Now sneak down into the enemy camp.
Great! Another thing I didn't want to do.
And take your servant Purah with you, if you're scared.
As if God knew I was scared. Which he did, obviously. So down into the valley we went, down where the enemies were camped for the night. And there were thousands of them, so many I lost count. How are 300 of us ever going to defeat this massive army, I wondered. And then I heard two of the soldiers talking to one another inside their tent.
Hey, guess what? What? I had a dream. I dreamed that this giant bread roll rolled into our camp and crushed us all.
No way! Oh, that'll be Gideon! The Lord has given him victory over us!
Wowee! After hearing that, I knew that I could just trust God. So back up the hill we scurried, and we handed all of the soldiers their weapons. I say weapons, but they were more like household items. Everyone was given a clay jar, a torch, and a trumpet. That's right, God wanted to make it absolutely clear that we weren't going to win this one by force of arms. So back into the valley we went, broken up into groups of 100, and when I gave the signal, we blew our trumpets, broke our jars, waved our torches, and shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon!" It was the middle of the night, and what with all the shouting and jar breaking and trumpet blowing and torch waving, the enemy army woke up confused. They didn't know what was happening, and they started swinging their swords at one another. In the end, they were so befuddled and frightened that we were able to chase them and defeat them, even though we were massively outnumbered. So I guess the angel was right after all. And the man with the dream. And God. And because I trusted them, I really did turn out to be a brave and mighty man. And no one was more surprised than me.
Isn't that a great story? Didn't they tell it really well? I just love the way that drama group does that for us. If you want to read it yourself, it's in Judges chapter 6 and 7. So what we're going to ask you to do now is just think in your classrooms, what do you think we can learn from the story of Gideon? What do you think we can learn from the story of Gideon? Here's some things you might think about. See if you can remember the number of people in Gideon's army. How many did he start with? Can you remember that number? And then it went down to how many? And he ended up with how many when it actually came to the battle? Just think about the numbers, see if you can remember those. And can you remember the weapons that were involved? What weapons do you think Gideon wanted to start off with? And what were the weapons that actually he ended up using when he listened to God and did what God told him? And can you remember what Gideon said about himself at the very beginning? God told him he was going to be what kind of person? And Gideon said, no, that's not me. And actually, who was right? Did God get it right in saying who Gideon was, or was Gideon right in thinking he was quite small and weak? Just think about those things. But the basic question is this: what do you think we can learn from the story of Gideon?
I wonder what you got out of that story of Gideon. I wonder what some of the answers were that you came back with in your class or maybe at home. Did you get from that story that we can trust God even when things seem so big, there's nothing we can do about it? Did you get from that story that we can trust God even when we think things are impossible? We're going to pray a minute. And we're going to pray a prayer that we can trust God in every situation, whether we're angry, whether we're fearful, whether we're happy, sad, whatever, we can trust God to get us through like he did with Gideon. So when we pray this, there's a line that says, help me to trust you, God. And when we say that line, maybe clasp your hands together and just hold them as if you're holding God's hand to say, help me to trust you, God. Okay. So we pray. Dear Lord, when I feel afraid, help me to trust you, God. When I feel lonely, help me to trust you, God. When I feel angry, help me to trust you, God. When I feel hurt, help me to trust you, God. Thank you that I can trust you. Amen. Right. But we're going to sing our last song, and then Martin's going to come back just to give us something to take away from today. But enjoy this song. It's called Ready to Go.
We're ready to go, 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 go. Ready to grow, 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 grow. Everyone's so welcome. You're welcome. Ready to go, 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 go. Ready to grow, 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 grow. Everyone's so welcome. You're welcome. Yes, we're all different. That's community. I'm not like you, and you are not like me. For we are all designed so uniquely, but all are welcome, that's a guarantee. Ready to go, 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 go. Ready to grow, 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 grow. Everyone's so welcome. You're welcome. Ready to go, 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 go. Ready to grow, 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 grow. Everyone's so welcome, you're welcome. We've come together so that we can grow, learning to do and be and not just know. We want our values and beliefs to show, and from our heads into our actions flow. We're ready to go, 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 go. Ready to grow, 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 grow. Everyone's so welcome. You're welcome. Ready to go, 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 go. to grow, 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 grow. Everyone's so welcome, you're welcome. Come gather, we gather, let's gather together. Come gather, we gather, let's gather together. Come gather, we gather, let's gather together. Come gather, we gather, let's gather. We're ready to go, 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 go. Ready to grow, 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 grow. Everyone's so welcome, you're welcome. Ready to go, 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 go. Ready to grow, 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 grow. Everyone's so welcome, you're welcome.
Great, so I really hope you enjoyed that song and hope you've enjoyed sharing with us in this assembly and collective worship. As we finish, you might just think, what are you going to take away from today? What's the lesson that you have learned from Gideon? Either about trusting God, maybe that we can trust God when he calls us to do things which just seem too big, or maybe how you approach something that seems too big. That actually, if it's something that you bring to God and pray to him, then his resources are available to help you when we do things in his way. So thank you for sharing with us today, and we look forward. We've got one more of our Giants of Faith Assemblies collective worships with you next week before the end of term. Thank you.